the plans. Well, the problem is you can't spend what you don't have.
Oh, it's
even
like
if you're
people waiting for their tax return.
Yeah.
Spending it before it gets there.
Yeah, but if they don't get it, then you're up the creek.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a single independent regulatory responsibility over the entire system. That's basically someone at the United Nations.
Why are you saying the United Nations?
They want a single regulator with responsibility. This is for
Wait,
the world.
addressing.
This is what he's
Oh,
outlining.
he's talking about doing this for the G20, addressing.
Yeah.
Oh, sheesh.
You know, basically, like the UN would be somebody at the United Nations would basically is anti-business, anti-Christian, would be in charge. So, anti-Jew. They want higher standards on capital and risk management for important firms. The problem is that somebody appointed would decide which were the important firms that you go in and run.
Yeah.
You know, and since they can't.
Wait a minute, are they talking about, you know how they're talking about nationalizing our industries? They're talking about nationalizing throughout the world?
Throughout the world. This is the blueprint for these countries at the G20. This is what we're going to do here, but it is Obama's blueprint for the entire world. You have to read this stuff.
Oh my God.
They won't. Registration of all hedge fund advisors with assets under management above a moderate threshold.
And what's a moderate?
$250,000.
Ouch. Because hedge funds don't even start until.
I know.
I mean, sometimes the hedge funds, they don't even manage your funds unless you have X amount to put in there.
Basically, Warren Buffett, who was one of the massive supporters of this young man with his ideas for change.
He's screwed.
No, he was screwed yesterday. They basically downgraded him to a. You know, they kicked the butt off of him because his stock is. They've lost so much value on his stock that they took most of his credit rating away from him yesterday, and it's a no invest now.
Really?
So
for Berkshire Hathaway, which has been one of the main.
It's no longer because of his. He basically gambled on Obama and lost. Basically, a comprehensive framework of oversight, protection, disclosure of the OTC derivatives market. Basically, what they're talking about is, tell us what your mommy and daddy are doing. You're doing this for the good of the country.
This is horrible.
Remember, okay, we're talking ages ago, I worked on a thing for Jack Webb called The Red Nightmare. And this sort of reminds you of that. Better red than dead. They convinced the little kids in school to tell everybody at the teachers what their parents were doing in some of the scenes. It was only a film short when it started. It didn't have a feature film. That's a nightmare. I've read this.
Oh gosh, I mean.
This is a single independent regular responsibility law.
I'm like getting.
Basically, you'd have to defining a systematically important firm. The government will decide which firms are important.
Now this is for the.
This is our framework for what the world should be like.
And we believe that, which means they're going to try and incorporate it here first before they expand.
They're going to show the world how it works here. And then they're talking to people at the UN right now about being involved in this process.
Oh gosh,
and Ban thinks it's a good idea that the head of the United Nations, the president of the United Nations.
Of course he does. Because it'll give him all the power.
He's also Muslim. So.
Oh, okay. The characteristics of these firms that they think are systemically important firms should include the financial system's interdependence with the firm. They're all related. The firm's size, leverage, including off-balance sheet exposures, and degree of reliance on short-term funding.
That's every business in the country.
The firm's importance as a source of credit for households, businesses, and governments, and as a source of liquidity for the financial system.
It's anybody,
which is what a financial firm is.
But it's also any business that hires people. The firm's important as a source of credit for households. That's somebody that pays a salary. Any business and government is a source. Any business. It says businesses right there.
Oh,
businesses.
God. This is like making. I'm looking at this and it's like making my stomach turn.
Well, yeah. My father. Okay, my father was. My father would have really been pissed. But he'd have been.
This is ridiculous.
My family are German Lutherans and German Lus also, German Jews. So, either side we'd have been up the creek with this government. So, and then you're basically you go back to the days when Asians can't be allowed to own businesses in California.
I know. We do have a plot of land where all the relatives bought houses, and there's there's 3 houses with one big driveway, because that's what.
Yeah, but we got the 2. Focusing on what companies do, not the form they take. They would not be limited to banks or bank holding companies, but include any financial institution that was deemed to be systematically important. Any company. It says any company. that they, you know, that anyone.
Basically, if they deem you important, they can take you, right?
Yeah, basically they'll focus on what they do and their potential risk. Okay, basically it wipes out Wall Street entirely and all the hedge funds to start with. Because they're basically Wall Street is, and insurance companies will all be gone because they all are risk takers.
Wow.
You always gamble.
Well, which also has to do with health insurance companies, any insurance companies, car insurance companies.
That's right. People that do warranties.
Oh,
You know, clarifying regulatory authority over payment and settlement activities, which means the government would once again decide who should get what. It's very simple.
That's not.
I mean, this is.
What happened to the incentive? What happened to the American dream?
But we'll put this up on our website so you can sit there and read it. You have to read it. You can't just simply skip over because when you skip down to the pages, basically the whole parts that they basically don't say financial. It says businesses.
Oh, God.
You know, major institutions. Higher standard on capital and risk management for systemically important firms. Meaning, systemically means any firm that they say is important is systemically important. They will decide. We're talking about people that can't formulate a budget for the country. They have to have continuing resolutions will appoint somebody to decide which business is important. Okay, say
We're talking about a government that pays out the bonuses, then tries to get them back by causing a mob.
Yeah.
I mean, mob mentality. I mean, it's just like.
Yeah, but it's just like okay. I grew up in a time period, you know, right after, you know, the Roaring '20s, where my father used to say, you know, that they, if they didn't like in the city of Los Angeles, if a person didn't like a business, they simply went to the local alderman, and the local alderman had the business seized, and they give it to somebody else. That basically, he played more along with it. I mean, it was total unbelievable corruption in the city of Los Angeles in the
How long
20s,
ago? In
20s, 30s, and 40s.
Well, guess what? I think the country is going to.
See, I saw the 40s, so I do. But this is what a country's going to. They're going to have more robust capital requirements for all firms. Basically, there is no credit. Since there is no credit, you already are out of business on the first floor. Imposing stricter liquidity, basically, everybody is based upon smoke and mirrors in most businesses they do. I mean, I know that my father basically had, okay, right now, we have assets, but our assets basically aren't liquid.
That's the big challenge.
That's the big challenge. We do have lots of assets. We have an enormous film library. We've got about 308 hours of video alone. That's an awful lot. You know, 30. You know, I think we said 269 feature films we've shot. We have over. We've got 300,000 or 400,000 pictures. We got a huge library, but we would have liquidity problems. But I love this one. Creating prompt corrective action regime. You know, anybody remembers this signal?
Are you serious?
They snap their foot. It says regime.
The regulator of these entities will also need a prompt corrective action regime that would allow the regulator to force protective actions as regulatory capital levels decline.
Yeah, and they basically
similar to the powers of the FDIC with respect to its covered agencies.
Yeah, so similar, but see, the FDIC is basically thought to be a little bit on the fuzzy side to begin with. But
yeah.
The FDIC does not go in and take a business over until the businesses fail.
Yeah, they don't.
This is taking businesses over that have not failed. And we've all seen what AIG has been like, folks. That business wasn't failing. The whole business was extremely profitable except for one end. What you do is you cut off the one end and the rest of the business is profitable. So what did they do? They left the one end there. So mostly Obama and whoever is pulling his strings needed someone to go after. And what better than a bunch of Jewish moneylenders?
Yeah.
That's always been the thing throughout history. Is Jewish, they're responsible for everything.
I know. How is it they always did that?
That's why they keep bringing up the name of George Bush, because George Bush, you know, he's basically
Jewish.
No, but he's the most. He supported the Jews. Anybody that supported them also.
Yeah, but you know,